How do you print from 1 to 100 without using a loop? This is an interview question and it might seem a bit tricky because whenever we hear of any repetition in programming, we think of loop. But we have another way of doing it. It's called recursion. If you're not familiar with this term, it is basically a concept of calling a function from itself. So let's get coding and see how to solve this. I'll be writing the entire code in C, but don't worry if you're from a Java or Kotlin or any other language background, because all you need to know is how to create a function and how to print. I'll be explaining the rest very explicitly. Don't worry about it. Follow along. Okay, so I have my main function here, and I also have these headers just for, printing out. So this standard IO header. And now let's go ahead and create a function, right? Because to do recursion we need a function, so it will be a void because we won't be returning anything. We'll call it print no loop, right? And it will take a parameter called n, which is of type integer. N here is basically the current number we will print. So if n is 2, we'll print 2. If n is 5, we will print 5. That's what n represents, all right? So you will see as we go on. So first of all, let's go ahead and create a print statement here. So printf %d and n, because it is an integer, so %d. And of course, if you are using any other language, then use the syntax of that language. It's basically a printing statement. But now if we call this function, it will just print it one time. So what we need to do now is call this function again, but at the same time increase the value of n by 1. So if n was 2 at this stage of time, we need to say that, okay, make n 3 and call this function again. So it will print 3 and make the n 4 and call this function again, and it will go on like that. So let's go ahead and increase the value of n by 1, so n++, and let's go ahead and call this same function again. So print no loop, and we'll pass the value of n there. But if you actually look carefully, this will actually create an infinite loop, right? Because we are not breaking at any point. It will continue calling this function as it goes on. So we need a way to break the statement. So how can we do that? Well, the better way, there are actually a lot of ways to do that. You can return before a function, but I want to use an if statement here. So let's go ahead and wrap all of this statement inside an if statement. So I'll create an if statement here. So if n is less than or equals to 100. Now we're passing 100 because we want to print from n to 100. So I'm just hard coding it right now, but don't worry, we'll make a generic function later on. So n to 100, and I'll just remove this and move this entire code over to here, right? Just fix the padding here, let's indentation here a little bit, and okay. So that's our code. So what we're saying here is, if n is less than or equals to 100, go ahead, print that number, print n, and increase n by 1, and call this same function again. So now, as the value of n will keep on increasing, at one moment of time, the value of n will actually be 100. So it will print 100, and after that it will be 101. But as 101 is greater than 100, it won't execute that function anymore. So we just created a break statement there. All right, okay. So now let's go ahead and call this function from our main function here. And okay, it just prints a stream of value. Let me just use a space after %d so that we can see it much more clearly. I'll just run it again, and as you can see, it works smoothly, exactly what we expected. And you can also print it vertically by using a new line character over there. Okay, so that works. Now let's actually go ahead and see how can we make it generic. So what that means is that we want to print from any number to any number, right? So let's say I want to print from 3 to 79. I want to do that. I want this function to do that, right? So let's go ahead and edit that function so that it can take any number any starting point and any ending point, right? So let's go ahead and edit the function. So first things first, we won't call this n anymore. Instead, we'll call it start number, and we'll take another parameter that is the ending number. So right, and here I'll replace all the n with basically a start number, start num. And now here, this is important, right? So in the previous example, we did from 1 to 100, so the ending number was 100. So here we need to replace end 100 with end num, right? So that it can loop from starting number until it reaches the ending number, right? Okay, and I'll replace the rest of the n with start num. So increase start num by 1 instead of n, and we'll call the same function with start num, and we'll pass in the end num as well. And now here in the main function, we need to pass two integers, that one is starting number and one is ending number. Now just for the sake of previous example, I'll pass 1 and 100 just to check that we still get the same result. As you can see, we get the expected result. But what's better now is that we create a generic function so we can pass in any values, right? So let's say I want to loop from 7 to, let's say, 273. All right, let's go ahead and run this. As you can see, we get the same result. We get our expected result. And that's it. Yeah. And I can also, replace the new line with a space so that we can see it in one screen. And that's pretty much it. And you can also go ahead and customize it your way. You can go crazy with it. So yeah, that's pretty much it for today. And do like this video and subscribe, because I found out that almost 70% of you are constantly watching on my videos but are not subscribing. That hurts, right? So do subscribe this channel and let me know how I can make my videos better. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.